Hey, it's Andrew, and the Switch 2 reveal direct was this morning. I, like many other gamers, over a million I'm pretty sure when I saw how many people were viewing the stream, at least on YouTube, got up at 6 a.m. Pacific time, and we sat down and watched the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. I wanted to talk to you guys about it because there were a lot of thoughts I had, besides the fact that it was a pretty dope event. There was also some really bad stuff that I'm not sure a lot of people noticed because Nintendo kept the bad stuff to themselves. We didn't really get to learn about it until after the event. So I want to go over the good and the bad, and I want to start out just like the Direct started out and talk about Mario Kart World. Wow. I am a huge Mario Kart fan personally. I'm a massive Double Dash fan, but at my house, my girlfriend and my roommate, we play a ton of Mario Kart. So since we haven't seen, when was Mario Kart 8? Almost a decade, I think? We haven't seen a new Mario Kart in forever, so it was long overdue. I am so excited for Mario Kart 9 / Mario Kart World. They went the open world route, which is awesome and kind of odd. I'm really curious to see how it plays out. Is the open world / maybe single player going to feel like an open world Mario game? Is there going to be puzzles? Is there going to be all kinds of stuff to explore? Is it going to feel like an entire big open world game where you get to do quests and stuff? I don't really know because they kind of just said in the Direct, you get to explore, take pictures, that kind of stuff. Really curious to see if this game offers a big single player with that open world. And on April 17th, they're going to do a Direct completely dedicated to this new Mario Kart game. So I'm very excited to see what we get from that. 24 player races, it's awesome. The maps look incredible. Everything is drawn together, so you're going from map to map. It looks amazing, and I'm very, very excited. I'm also excited to see what the new Rainbow Road looks like. I'm a Rainbow Road fan, some people aren't. I'm incredibly excited for this game, except for one thing, but we'll talk about that later. On the game front, we saw a ton of third-party devs announcing their games, which is really cool to see, considering a lot of third-party devs have stayed away from the original Nintendo Switch because of how underpowered it was. A lot of people avoided it, and that was always frustrating because if you were more of an all-around gamer, you wanted to play all the Switch games, you wanted to play Nintendo games because Nintendo games are generally pretty awesome, but you also had to own something else just to play the big games coming out. So seeing stuff like Elden Ring, Borderlands 4 when it launches, all coming to Switch 2 is a pretty big deal because as somebody who doesn't even own a console anymore and wants to buy a Switch 2, it means that I can still play the new big games when they launch. And there were all kinds of big third-party games we saw. Games that have already released like Elden Ring, like the new, what was the new game from the It Takes Two developers? It was Split Fiction. We get awesome games like that all coming to the Switch, which I'm really excited to play. But then we also get announcements, like I said, with Borderlands 4 and upcoming third-party releases. We don't know much about some of the big third-party studios like Microsoft with Activision and Bethesda. We don't know if we're going to see those coming to the Switch, and I'm sure we'll get some announcements soon because Phil Spencer had said stuff about wanting like Call of Duty to come to Nintendo systems. There's all kinds of stuff that we don't have announced yet, but the third-party support was pretty incredible. There's going to be a lot of games on the Switch 2. I don't like the name Switch 2. Let me take a second to be like, I don't like the name Switch 2. Joy-Con 2. I know why they didn't want to call it the Super Switch because they wanted to try and keep the backwards compatibility in mind, which that's another thing. Backwards compatibility, all kind of expected it. It's great to see, but I don't like the Switch 2 is the name. This is my new console, the Switch 2. I'm not a fan of it, but it's what they're going with, and it's very Nintendo. The biggest game announcement for me personally was Bloodborne 2. I know it's not Bloodborne 2. I remember watching it and being like, there's no way this is Bloodborne 2, right? But it is what it is. What is it called? I have to look this up. I found it. Dusk Bloods. This is crazy. From Software making a, by the way, console exclusive game. This is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, coming out in 2026. From Software's follow-up to Elden Ring is going to be a Nintendo exclusive. Also, the game looks and kind of feels like Bloodborne. I have a theory that this game originally in development was the sequel to Bloodborne. Sony said they didn't want it for whatever reason, and so Nintendo shopped it off and they had to change the IP because Sony owns Bloodborne. But it looks awesome. I'm so excited. I loved Elden Ring. I'm a big fan of Bloodborne. It was a very unique and interesting game. I'm really excited to see what we get from this, and that could be a killer app for the Switch systems because with the success of Elden Ring and how massive that was, marketing this as the follow-up to that game, especially considering if it is as amazing as we kind of got from Elden Ring, this could be a huge system seller for the Nintendo Switch. The hardware of the system is really interesting considering the price, which we will get into. It's larger, 7.9 inches, I believe they say, 1080p, 120 hertz LCD. I am disappointed it's not an OLED. I understand that would have been way too expensive, but we got to see the display. We got to see it in person. LCDs could be incredible. The Analog Pocket is an LCD display, and that's one of my favorite displays on the market. It's all about how you do an LCD display. So I'm hoping that this display is fantastic and vibrant, and those numbers are really interesting. We're getting 1080p, which is a normal resolution a little while ago, and 120 hertz, which is really compelling on a handheld, and I'm really happy with those specs on handheld. The dock has its own fan built into it to help with some extra cooling, meaning that they can push this system to do 4K when docked on a TV, and not just 4K, 4K 60 was talked about a lot during this presentation, and I'm really excited to see that come to fruition because I personally have a 4K TV. A lot of people are starting to have 4K TVs. You can get them as cheap as $120 at Walmart now. 4K is pretty normal for resolution, so I'm really excited to be able to play split screen Mario Kart in 4K on our 4K TV. It's going to be awesome, and I'm curious to see if the system is doing it natively. It's par for the course for Nintendo to put out hardware that isn't generally up to current specs. They like to put out old gen tech with a new body and new gimmicks, and I don't necessarily trust, I haven't seen the spec list personally, I don't know if it's out there yet. I don't necessarily trust that Nintendo's packing in powerful modern tech into this Switch, but it's running 4K 60. My theory is that it's probably doing a lot of AI upscaling, so I need to wait until the system releases so I can see it with my own eyes to see if it is actually good, and it is a good 4K. If it is, that's awesome, and I'm incredibly excited for that. Joy-Cons are a bit bigger. I'm excited with that. I didn't really like the ergonomics of the original Switch, so a bigger display, bigger Joy-Cons, that's going to be awesome. Bigger sticks, bigger buttons. I'm so here for that. We also got announced that I'm actually pretty interested in is Game Share, which is basically, if you remember back in the day, DS download play. One person can have a game and multiple people can connect to them and download and play the game off of their system. We're not really sure exactly how it works, but what it means is that one person can own a game and other people with Switch consoles can play co-op with them, and that's pretty awesome. Game Share is a big step forward in being able to just do co-op and play games with all kinds of people. And another big step they took with the Switch 2 and being able to do that is their new game chat system, which is essentially just Discord. They added a mic to the system that is voice isolation, so that's cool. So you can talk to your friends. They added the C button on the right Joy-Con so you can open your game chat at any time. You can stream your gameplay to your friends. You can talk to friends. They added a Nintendo camera attachment you can purchase to be able to do camera chat. You can just FaceTime your friends. It basically is Discord, and I'm really curious to see if this is going to be proprietary Nintendo system or if we'll see something like Discord integration into the thing, which would be dope. I have a feeling Nintendo's going to keep it on their own terms, and that's kind of frustrating. I'm also really curious to see with the new voice chat focus if they're going to have open game chats in games. Call of Duty comes to the Switch or Halo comes to the Switch. Will I be able to talk in the lobby with random people, or am I stuck only being able to talk with friends in party chat? Curious to see. It's a cool addition, even though it should have been there for the last decade. And that is the transition that I want to make into some of the bad stuff. It's kind of good, kind of bad. The price. I don't think the price is crazy. The base system is $449 USD. That's $450. With Mario Kart World bundled, it's going to be $500. That is not absurd. Those are current console prices. So what that means is that this system is now competing with the other systems. Back when the Switch was $300, it kind of was okay to just have a Switch and have your other system for actual gaming. But now that this thing is marketing itself as an actual gaming console that can play all of the AAA third-party games at launch, and it's pricing itself as such, I have a lot higher expectations for the experience that this console offers. And it's not just competing with a PlayStation or Xbox anymore. If I go to Best Buy, pick up a handheld gaming console, I'm now competing with the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck, the Lenovo Legion Go S, competing with different handhelds in this space. So this system has to really impress. And that price could be great, it could be awesome, just worries me a little bit because I don't trust Nintendo that much. They have a long history of anti-consumer habits, and that leads me into some of the other bad. Mario Kart is $50 when you get it bundled with the system, but unfortunately, after the show, we had it revealed that Mario Kart World, the digital copy, is going to be $80 US. The physical copy is going to be $90 US, and this is just bad. They could come out and rationalize that this was such an expensive game and they had to raise the prices and all that, but Nintendo really, more than likely, just raised the price because they could. They're offering the bundle to try and get people to get the bundled game, and then they're price gouging their customers with a much higher priced game. And the big downside is that this is going to set the precedent for all other games. A lot of people thought that GTA 6 might push the price a little bit, and I guarantee that they will now because Nintendo's getting away with it. You think Nintendo is going to sell Mario Kart for $80, and we're not going to see Activision try and sell every Call of Duty for $80 now, base price. Donkey Kong was another game that they announced at the event, and that game's going to only be $70, so Nintendo seems to just be making up the prices for the games wherever they're going. But pushing prices like this is just bad for the end consumer, especially considering that the console's already really expensive, and they pretty much expect you to have a subscription to the online service. These prices are getting wild, and that just leads me into the fact that these game prices are going to be rough. We're on the Nintendo eShop. We have to get physical Nintendo cards. We don't have a G2A or big Steam sales or anything. When you get a Switch 2 on launch day, you probably get the bundle, so you get Mario Kart for only $50. Then maybe you want to play Cyberpunk or Elden Ring, games that released a couple years ago. Those are probably going to be $60-70 hard cash. If you want to play games on the Switch 2, it is going to be incredibly expensive, and I can't wrap my head around it being a better experience, especially when a lot of these games that aren't Switch 2 exclusives, because I'm pretty sure Mario Kart is the only Switch 2 exclusive game at launch. A lot of these games I could get on my Steam Deck for far cheaper. I could probably go get a Cyberpunk key for really cheap and play it on my Steam Deck and have pretty much the same experience. Nintendo is making the system incredibly expensive, and what else is really bugging me that I think is really bad is enhanced game experiences. You want to play Breath of the Wild, a game that came out in 2017, or Tears of the Kingdom, game that you probably already own on your Switch. You want to play them in higher resolution on a higher frame rate on the system you just spent $500 on? Well, now you gotta pay extra. So that $70 Tears of the Kingdom game you bought for the Switch a couple years ago, if you want to play it with improved frame rates and such, now it's gonna cost you what, another $20-30? We don't know how much these increased enhanced edition games are going to cost when you already own them, but they might be a good chunk of change, and that just isn't great. I already bought the game, I already bought your system, I'm probably buying online. Just let me play the game I already own with enhanced frame rates. Like, look at Xbox, look at PlayStation. They've been doing this stuff for a while, but Nintendo, of course, is going to price gouge it. And I don't think this is a problem, personally, with games like Mario Party Jamboree, which it's Switch 2 Enhanced Edition, comes with extra content, like a big DLC pack. That's fine. If you're going to charge for an upgrade with DLC, that's fine. But if you're just going to give us the same game that we already own with a higher resolution that makes it just kind of modern, and you're going to price gouge us for it, Nintendo is really bad about that stuff. The last thing that I think is kind of a bad, and mainly all the bad has to do with Nintendo and price gouging. I think it's going to be bad. Some people might think it's going to be good. It's a bit of a gimmick, but the mouse controls on the Joy-Cons. The last handheld system I used that did mouse emulation type stuff was the Lenovo Legion Go, and it was by far the worst part of that system. Nintendo could do some interesting stuff with the mouse controls on the Switch Joy-Cons because they added optical sensors to them. The only scenario where I saw it being kind of fun was in Mario Party with some goofy mini games, but I don't want to take my Joy-Cons off, put them on my coffee table, and rub them around. I'm not a fan of the mouse control on the Joy-Cons. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. They just seem weird and unnecessary. Would rather have them take out the optical sensors and maybe just added more oomph to the system. I don't know. Fact of the matter is, though, is that besides the bad business practices and just charging your consumers to the end of the earth, the Switch 2 does look pretty awesome. I am going to pre-order one, and I will definitely do a video on it when it launches. I'm definitely streaming Pokemon Legends EA this winter when it comes out, so stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for the video on the Switch 2 when it launches, because again, what we saw was awesome. There's a lot of great games. The system looks dope. There's so much awesome and good stuff, but Nintendo, they're going to price gouge us for it. They're going to make it expensive. It's going to be an expensive launch day. But what are your thoughts? This is all breaking news. This is all brand new. I'm incredibly excited. I want to know your thoughts. If you don't have anything to say, no comments, drop your favorite emoji in the comments. Helps out with the engagement of the video. I will be back very soon with more content. And hey, thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.